back, friends, to episode 2. Did you know that in the fantasy genre, one of the biggest insults you can hurl is Ren Fair, followed by a synonym for turds? Well, I love Ren Fairs, and growing up, going to one was like a brief family holiday. In fact, we went almost every year since they opened, sometimes more, making the city of Willy-Nilly on the Wash the site of many of my fondest childhood memories. However, I was young. Much like the weeboo stage for anime and manga fans, I can forgive younger people for creating their own Sailor Scout teams and fantastically bland original worlds. Because I did it too. Wow, I can't believe you dug that up just to embarrass me. Oh wait, yes I can. I didn't know that places still existed like Rothenburg ob der Tauber in the Bavarian region of Germany, or as it's been anglicized, Rothenburg. Rothenburg is famous for being a preserved medieval hamlet as opposed to restored. Aside from the obvious, here's the difference between Willy-Nilly and Rothenburg. Willy-Nilly is kind of like Vegas. It's hard to imagine anyone actually living there long term, even though I know they do. Rothenburg actually feels like people live there for more than a weekend pass, because they do. Rothenburg is beautiful in how absolutely mundane the place looks, and I mean that as a compliment. It's not dressed up to look like a perpetual festival every single day of the week. That doesn't mean I stopped enjoying the annual trips to Willy-Nilly for the Ren Fest, but if you're going to draw inspiration from someplace for the sake of a vaguely realistic fantasy setting and the trademark mythical time space inhabited by most versions of King Arthur tales, the Inkling's greatest contributions to literature, more than a few games, and every modern folk song, then I'd rather it be someplace as authentic as possible. That gulf between Willy-Nilly and Rothenburg is how I feel when I read many webcomics versus when I picked up Unsounded for the first time. Let's start with the creator herself, Ashley Cope, who currently works as a freelance artist in Central Florida to pay the bills, as well as pushing out at least 3 pages of Unsounded every week. Every once in a while, a group of pages go up together. Ashley attained a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Ringling College of Art and Design and has been, by her own admission, developing Unsounded since before her artistic skill could showcase it in comic form, roughly 1997.
Okay. The circus I remember from my childhood was definitely not made of meat. The last time I checked.
Why does her system work? My theory is that it has something to do with her working 80 pages in advance of the online releases. Dang! Not only is that good time management, but think about it this way. If an average issue of a comic book is 20 pages, give or take, she works 4 issues ahead of what she posts. At her pace of 3 pages a week, that's about 7 months in advance. Impressive, yes, but it also allows her to be an effective editor of her own work. Artwork, dialogue, and pacing. If you create something and walk away from it for 7 months, your eyes are much fresher for critiquing. By working that far in advance, she also enjoys a more relaxed creation process, and the upload deadlines don't stress her out either. Clearly, the system is working for her, because the results are just breathtaking. So is there a surprising nugget that helped jumpstart her world-building process into a real comic? Yes! Dungeons and effing Dragons!
He is the prince of the land of fire, noble and true with a heart of steel. Now in his last wages shall be his, and this my wife is his name.
No way! I knew this lady had good taste, I just didn't think it was that good. In her interview with The Ranting Dragon, she said, and I quote, "Many of Unsounded's seed elements were incorporated into a role-playing setting I created for my friends. We played in this setting for a decade, and all the time the comic was feeding into RP, and RP was feeding back into the comic. Ultimately, the RP ended, but at that point I had both improved my art enough and worked up confidence enough as a storyteller after years of DMing that I knew I was ready to really buckle down and start the comic. Also, I had seen how receptive readers were to other fantasy-themed page-at-a-time webcomics, so I felt there was an audience for me. RP taught me a lot about pacing, and about keeping people engaged in a story, about how much information to convey, and how much to keep close for the big reveal. I suppose it really gave me a love of entertaining people too. I think there are some creators who could do with running a game or 3. We need to always entertain ourselves with our work, but overcoming self-indulgence and putting plot and delivery first can really make a story stand out." Thank you, Ashley. You took the words right out of my mouth. Remember how I said Rothenburg was beautifully mundane and that it captured a place where people actually lived, not that it was bland or ordinary? That's Unsounded. To recap, let's look at the cover art for Chapter 1. All of the essential elements are there. The lamps, the tailoring on the clothes, the glassware, and the wagon inform the level of tech present in this world. The carved statues, prayer boards, and offerings hint at some level of organized religion being present for the supernaturalism pillar. Governance is probably the hardest to spot, but it's fair to say that the signpost probably wasn't donated by a kindly woodcarver. Enculturation is right out in front. Look at how the background figures are casually treating the young person, like they stopped and asked for directions, but the younger one is in charge. Something about this world allows that to be normal. Lastly, the ecology. For the love of Tolkien, just look at it all! It's the immediate sense of place that drew me to focusing on this webcomic for the eco-pillar. The city looks kind of Mediterranean from a distance, the trees are probably deciduous, and there are banks to the road. Some very organized effort created this trade route. Now contrast that with the first page. No road at all, more like a break in the tree line. The very first page sets up the character introductions through jokes about literally geography. Not only that, the conversation continues through the rest of the chapter, and honestly, none of it would make sense if the author didn't have a very clear map of her world in her mind and possibly on paper. The really amazing part is that all of this could have been done with one giant bird's eye landscape and narration with no personality, but it wasn't. It was done through absolutely hysterical dialogue between our two mains. I've not caught a glimpse of a road sign in days. There's no telling where you have led us. We're in Satania! If that ain't enough for you, we're on a cliff. There's a lake over there. And what lake is that? Lake Satania! Never would I have agreed to escort you to your cousin's had I known there would be these endless sidetracks. Bah! I don't even know why Dad asked you to come. Letter writing and reading. You're no proper attack zombie. Half the time you never bite gnaw, eating brains don't interest you, and you talk more than most blokes scratch their... Hey! Trying to record here! Anyway, for those who haven't read the comic, the young one is kinda like... Rainbow Dash. Awesome! If you gave her Patty Thompson's mouth.
Get your ass moving now, damn you!
Then Toph as a mentor.
Do people really want to see two little girls fighting out here?
That's probably why her accent is just ragamuffin in my head. Meanwhile, her guardian has the quotable quipping power of both Tulio and Miguel.
Such mediocrity. Let your sword do the talking. I will, it will be loquacious to a fault. Ha, ha!
But with the eloquence and magical power of Loki to back it up.
Humanity. Look how far you've fallen. Lining up in the sweltering heat for hours. Huddling together in the dark. Like beasts.
Except dead. Which explains his dry humor, at least. Look how calmly he uses his powers. Like, this is just how he rolls. I'm not saying all magic has to work like this, but it does tell you a lot about how it works for him. We don't even know his name yet, but we definitely know his personality. Seti, meanwhile, is just egotistic enough to incorporate her name into her imaginary kingdom's toponymy. There's no forced situation of calling him by his name because, as you'll see, she doesn't think of him as a being on par with her awesome self and believes her priority should be everyone's. We are turning around and going back to Chartashane. What? No! You forgetting your promise? You have to take me to my cousins or Dad will tell everyone in town you're a monster! Then I will move on. It will not be the first time carelessness has cost me a home. Ow, I think my foreshadowing senses are tingling. Oh no! Look what it did to the book! Oh no, my tears from the future have ruined it! Even now, you can tell by his body language that he's not in control and not happy about it either. In fact, he tries to utilize free will and decides to leave. Until he's chomped on by the first encounter ambush attack. Looks like somebody rolled a low initiative. Seti's pretty thrilled by the sight of it though. The next 2 pages show how little Seti regards the man's existence by how much she thinks of her own, as she's trying to coe a giant walking tree root. Pro tip, Seti, try it in Sylvan or Terran next time, maybe giant. As if to continue showing the gap between these two characters, this chapter also gives us a turn back, ye mortals! kind of moment for the non-horror fans to bail on, featuring the still unnamed zombie spellcaster as he wanders inside the cavernous stomach. Now, I have a weak stomach myself to the point that I can't watch most medical dramas and scary movies, but I get through this just fine with the appropriate amount of mixed with ooh disgust without wanting to actually retch. That's a compliment, Ashley, I swear. And so, without further ado, everyone roll a sanity check. What? I didn't say it had to be a high roll. Dang, just look at how the badge transforms into a ravenous canine. The inside of the walking root becomes a thorny vine element to the image alongside off-colored roses and a heated battle that looks like the blonde man's troops are losing. If you were concerned on the first page about the artistic skill backing this project, all of that got laid to rest. Talk about a splash page. See how the primary image breaks through the panels and covers up some of the corners too? That looks even more amazing online if you can believe it. Here's the previous page. Fairly standard layout, right? Here's that epic page again. Nice. Although I'm pretty sure the colors were muted in the printing process, whether by intent or not. This is show don't tell in full force. This is a character feeling a grand conflict on a personal scale. If one of the characters, or worse, the narration, had commented on these two cultures being locked in a feud, we might not have cared. This way, I couldn't wait to find out what was going on. That's enough of an introduction to the plot without spoiling anything, because I want you all to read this story and fall in love with it just like I did. Now, we can move on to the meat of the world building discussion. The non-decaying kind of meat anyway. Namely, breaking down the questions to help guide you through the eco pillar and how it intersects with the other pillars. Until then, may the road rise to meet you, my friend.